Okay, it's time to paint this Indian. I always worry about using the word Indian because I guess the correct thing to say is Native American, but everybody thinks they're Indians, but they're actually, that's the term for the guys who live over in India, not the ones here that live in Oklahoma. So we're getting ready here. So the first thing is to decide what's going to go on here. And one of the main things I like to emphasize is this right here, the mount. You have to have it, if you want your work to be appreciated as it should be, don't just do a carving of a figure sitting on the table all by itself. That's a knick-knack. Put a pedestal on it. Bring your carvings up to a higher level by putting a pedestal underneath it. And that changes the whole thing. It becomes not a knick-knack, but a piece of art. And that's what you want. I mean, you're an artist if you're wood carving. You're not doing crafts. You're trying to make something. Not a craft. It's a carving. It's a sculpture. That's how I think of my work. It's a sculpture. It may be a wood carving, but it's a sculpture. It's no different than a guy who sits down and works with a big ball of clay and creates something like this here. And then he takes it down to the art foundry and they cast it in bronze, and it's a sculpture. It's no longer a piece of clay. It's a sculpture now. The piece of clay was destroyed during the making of the sculpture. Well, we're not going to destroy the piece of wood that we make our carving, because that piece of wood is the sculpture itself. So actually, we're doing something a little harder than these guys who work in clay and create these beautiful bronzes. If we make a mistake on our wood, it's there forever. If those guys make a mistake on their sculpture, they just add a little bit or take a little bit more clay off of that piece. And even after they've given it to the foundry, they can still make corrections in that foundry when they're casting a piece of, using wax to make a lost wax casting of the piece. They can modify that wax in the foundry if someone wants to change. Once we make a carving, once we get it down to this level here, it's finished. We can't go back and change stuff. Okay? Kind of long-winded, I do. Anyway, what we're going to do first is we're going to do the head. So I'm going to set this out of the way, somewhere around here. Right over there. And I use my little tools here. These are just a stick with a sheetrock screw stuck in it. And I use these to hold the piece while I'm working on it. So the first thing I do is I get my spray bottle and I hose him down. Really soak him down. And then you wait a while that water soaks in. And you listen to me ramble on some more. So why do I do it? Well, this is just the way I paint. When you paint, a lot of guys will seal their carving before they paint. They'll put the disgusting boiled linseed oil on it. And that'll dry, but it never dries actually. Here, let's see there. I didn't get that wet. I want to make sure we get that wet. Quit talking so much. That's, okay, I don't seal my carvings. I want this water on there. I want it to soak into the wood. Why? Because when I apply paint to this, I want the dampness of the wood to pull that paint down beneath the surface. That gives that paint a completely different appearance than if you had sealed your carving and put that paint on top of it. The color of the wood shows through the various paints you use, and it gives it just a warm amber glow of just a minute amber. Not a, it's not really strong. It's very small, but it's enough to change the color from being really solid, sitting on top of the wood, into a stain, and it just makes it look 100% better that way. And the reason, that's really the main reason you see so many burn marks around here. I use them for two reasons. One, to accentuate the crevices of his face and his clothing, but also important, it allows the paint to stay in its area and not creep into the other areas. Like his head's going to be a reddish or a rusty reddish color here, and this is going to be black. Well, I definitely don't want this to creep over into that red area, but those little burn marks will just stop that black dead in its tracks, or stop the red dead in its tracks going the opposite direction. So that's why I do it. Anytime there's a color separation, and there's lots of them here, those burn marks stop that from happening, from bleeding. Okay? So, what to paint his face. All right, what we're going to do, as you notice, the wood, after I wet it, takes sort of a yellowish tint to it than what it was before. Well, if you ever went to a museum and you saw a bunch of dead things in bottles of formaldehyde, they generally take on this kind of appearance, sort of just a blah, yellowish appearance, which is what that is. Well, that's how human or skin looks when all the blood has been drained out of it. So just in your mind, just think, well, all the blood's been drained out of this guy. What we're going to do is we're going to put that blood back into his body to make him look colorful, as he should be. So to do that, I use this color, red iron oxide. You can get it down at Hobby Lobby, at Amazon, or just about anywhere. So I'm going to squeeze me out a little bit of that. It won't take much. And I use a little bit of, this says antique gold, but all this is yellow ochre. So I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of that. Won't take much of that. And this is a real rich brown. This one's called asphaltum. How they get asphalt for a brown, I have no idea, because I can look out my window and see that road out there, and that's asphalt. Well, that don't look like that color to me. And I can look out the other window when we had our driveway put in. When the guys came in with the actual asphalt and put it down, it was black then. It just bleached out white as it was outside. But I'm going to use this as being a brown color, which it is. How these people come up with these names for these paint colors, I don't know. Come out of there. There we go. Don't need very much of that at all. Put that over here. Okay, so get my brush. I'm going to pull out a little red here. Pull out some yellow. And pull out some brown. Now, how do how do you know how much of this to that you want to pull out? Well, I can't tell you. You're just going to have to work that out yourself. I'll give you the colors, but you can see what I'm doing here. But everybody has their own view of how things should look, so you just have to practice around with it. Now you notice I cleaned my brush out. It was got too much paint in it. I don't want any paint in that brush. I want to pick up this little bit of paint down here. And then I can come out here and put it on there and see how it looks once it's on. Yeah, it's getting there. Need to put more color. So let's go ahead and start painting this. Okay, so we're painting the face now. Am I worried about red running into black? Not really. I don't care if it gets in there because the black covers everything. So that doesn't concern me. But if I painted the black first, I would definitely be worried about it crawling over into the areas where the red goes. Get some more of that out of there. That's what I'm after right there. This is just a light coat I'm putting on here right now. Now you notice didn't try to put the paint on his face all at once, you know, have enough color mixed here that I can just come in here and paint it one time and be finished with it. I let it build up over time so I can manage it better. Okay, now this time out here on his cheeks where the sun hits, I'm going to make that a little redder. And there on his nose where the sun hits it more than the other areas of his face will make it a little redder. A little here on his lips. Oh, it's looking pretty good. Now, here's a color here. This is called Midnight Blue. It's a beautiful color, very deep blue. Squeeze out just a little bit of that. Come out of there. That's way too much. Now, what am I going to do with that? Well, as people get old, like me, and you get these darker circles around your eyes. And also, you sort of get a 5 o'clock shadow. Now, Indians generally don't have hair on their face. You know, like we do. We have to get up and shave each morning. But they do. Some do. So most of them have a bluish tinge to their, especially their cheek area. So that's what we're going to use this blue for. So now I just barely touch that blue. And put that up there like that. Wash the paint on my brush. Need a little bit more than that. And we're going to paint those eyes. See the effect that had on it? We're going to paint in here where his cheeks are. We're not painting this to indicate that he has to shave. He doesn't. We're just giving his face color. Now when we put that blue on there, we actually washed away some of the red. But because the color piece of wood was damp, it pulled that red down, some of it down into the wood itself. So that red is still there. It's just not as heavy as it used to be. We washed some of it away. Put a little bit more red up here on his forehead. Another thing with this, see the blue is kind of heavy right there, those spots. I can take my brush and almost just erase those things completely. Might not get it all, but I'll get most of it. And then I'll put some red back in there to fill that area up that I washed away. So there, it's like, except for his eyes, his face is done. Okay? And look at how much paint we used. Hopefully I can use some of this on the shirt and not waste it. But you know, painting is a process of waste. You're going to waste a heck of a lot of paint, probably more than you actually use. So, next, Judy wants to take a break. Holding that camera gets tedious after a while, so we'll be back here in a minute. Okay, I went ahead to speed the process up and started painting his hair. See Judy holding that camera for so long. I'm just outlining the areas. But see again, you can see where the burn marks stop that paint from crawling. You'll look at your brush after a while and see how this brush is curved at the tip. Now I didn't do that. That brush just did that itself. But that little tip really comes in handy when you're painting tight areas. You can get right down in there. I'll show you. I'm not worried about that black from crawling across that line. That little point, you know, that really helps you out. You just go right down into those crevices and save you a lot of work. Okay. I'll put my little brush away and get my bigger brush. And really start laying the paint on. If you get you a good set of brushes, they'll last you an awful long time. Some of these brushes around here, like this one here, see, it's got a point on it too. That's a sign of old age. I bet you there used to be a store in Tulsa, Triangle Blueprint Company, and they had an art department, and they taught art classes in there. But you could also buy art supplies in there, even though this was back in the days when they did blueprints, which I don't think they do that much anymore. But they had this line of student brushes. That's what this one is. That one, not that one. This big one here, that one there. I bought those brushes, I bet you almost 40 years ago. Like this one here. I'm sure it's 40 years old. But it's a good brush. And I bet you $1 if I continue to take care of it, it'll last 40 more. Well, it'll last longer than I will. Sad to say. Just make sure you clean them out. Take care of them. That's worn. I mean, the tip has actually been worn down in one direction from me constantly painting this way and wearing off the hair this way. And that's the longer hair that's still out there. But even that, because it's turned, made that little hook. Helps. So I don't want to get rid of them. I always fall back to these brushes, but I got tons of brushes here. I got brushes over there. I got brushes everywhere. It's like the elusive search for the perfect brush. The same as the elusive search for the perfect paint color. Well, the best paint colors are the ones you mix yourself. You're not going to find a flesh. People go down to the hobby shop and they'll buy flesh, and it doesn't look at all like flesh. People aren't pink and rosy. Maybe babies are, but I haven't carved any babies for a long time. And even they were Native American, so these colors up here was the colors I used to paint the babies. Just got to wrap this guy up. I'm hungry. Got to go get a test tomorrow. It's another thing about old age. You're always getting tests. Can't have anything to solid to eat all day. Have to subsist on water and clear fruit juice. Jell-O, if I'm lucky. Judy made me a big thing of Jell-O this morning. And then I'm not going to have anything to drink after midnight. Ever notice? They always tell you, if you have an operation or some kind of procedure, they say, now remember, you can't have anything to eat or drink after midnight. Okay, so your procedure is 6 o'clock in the morning. So you can't have anything to drink between midnight and 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, that's not so bad. But what if your procedure was at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon? It's bad enough that you're going to miss breakfast, but you're going to miss lunch too. Why couldn't they say, remember, you can't have any food or drink after 4 in the morning? It's just not fair. Okay, we got that all done. All right, he's looking good, I think. And Judy lets out a big sigh. Now, what you have to watch for now as this thing dries, you think you've got it all done. That magic word, holidays. It's what my old friend who lived up the road called them. These little white, unpainted spots that seem to have a life of their own, but they only pop up after you think they're all gone, and they're constantly popping up. See, just like right in there. You think you got everything, but you don't. So you try to get as many of them as you can. There's a big one right down there. But you're going to just have to remember when you come back, you're going to have more of them to take care of, and you'll get them eventually. Another question is, do Native Americans have eyebrows? Well, some do and some don't. So I don't paint my eyebrows on there until I think about it long and hard. Probably close to right before I varnish it, I might make that final decision whether he's going to have eyebrows or not. He looks good without them, to me. Okay, I think that's going to do it for this video. Judy's getting tired holding that camera up there. Looking pretty good. This will be, I'm going to go ahead and paint this with the red iron oxide, because I'm going to give him red braids, and this red iron oxide color, rusty red, is a good underpainting color to paint things like that, to where you can come back after you underpaint it and put a more reddish color on there, probably like a Moroccan red, which I think is a real rich red color. I'd never painted that color. That would just be too bright. That's a good in-between color right there. Okay, so in the next video, the head will be pretty much finished, and we'll continue on with the body. Okay? So until then, I'll talk to you later.